Let us look at proposition number 26 of book 7 of Euclid's Elements. The proposition says if two numbers are relatively prime to two numbers, both to each, then their products are also relatively prime. So here basically we have four numbers. Two of these are relatively, each of them are prime to each of these. Then their products will also be relatively prime. Now let's look at an example to understand what we mean by this. Now we know 2 and 3 are relatively prime to 5 and 7. So what the proposition is saying that the product of 2 and 3, that is 6, will also be relatively prime to the product of 5 and 7, that is 35. And we know 6 and 35 are relatively prime. Okay, so let's prove this. We are given that A is relatively prime to C and D. B is relatively prime to both C and D. Okay, so let's take it one by one. If we see A and B both are relatively prime to C, that means the product of A and B is also relatively prime to C. Here, E is A times B. So that means E is relatively prime to C. Similarly, B is relatively prime to D. A is relatively prime to D. That means the product A times B is relatively prime to D. And A times B is nothing but E. So E is relatively prime to D as well. So C and D are relatively prime to E. Yes, C here and D here. That means the product will also be relatively prime to E. So C times D is relatively prime to E. Now, C times D is nothing but F. F is the product of C and D. So, which means E is relatively prime to F. That is proposition number 26 of book 7 of Euclid's Elements. Again, let me remind you, there is a link to a PDF book which describes all these propositions in detail. Please feel free to download it, refer to it. And if you think somebody else can also benefit from it, please do share. That's it for now. Bye.